Board of County Commissioners meeting of March 15th, 2021 at 6 p.m. At this time, if everyone would please stand for our invocation and pledge by Commissioner Fleming will lead us.
Let us pray. Our Father, we come again, once again, in your name. Thank you for all your blessings. And Father, we thank you for a portion of life, health, and strength. And we thank you for the angels that watched over while we slumbered and slept all last night and starting us out on another day's journey. We pray that you bless our country, our nation. Look over us. Father, look over these commissioners today as we make decisions. Help us to make the right decision. Help us to do what's right in your eyesight. Give us strength, oh God, and help us to take care of our families. Bless each and every heart in this building. Father, we thank you and we love you. This we ask in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Fleming, for those positive words. At this time, our first order of business is approval of minutes from our March 2nd and March 9th, 2021 meetings. Any questions, comments, or do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner White.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Land. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving right along to our consent agenda, we have items 2 through 14. Gentlemen, do I have any questions or comments, or do I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Have a motion by Commissioner Hale.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fleming. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have some time specific at 6:05, but we have a couple of minutes. So what I would like to do is we're going to move on down to item number 20. I'm going to ask Mr. Larry Sessions, Director of Suwannee Valley Transit Authority, to come forward. He's got a welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Chairman, Commissioners, let me see if I can get this thing fired up. Not ready. All right, Eric. See what we got here. Getting there. Get this whole thing here. Yeah. All right. We're gonna. Commissioner Hale asked me to basically do an update on Suwannee Valley Transit Authority. We serve 3 counties: Suwannee, Hamilton, and Columbia County. About 2,000 square miles. I've been there since kind of mid 2015. There's been, thank you, sir. There's always, in certain circles, there's a lot of discussion about Suwannee Valley Transit, and some people don't want to hear how well we've done. They just want to focus on anything they can that make us look bad for some reason. So I'm a numbers person. I guess everybody can hear me all right. And so what I'm going to do is just show you some numbers. The first graph here, I don't know if everybody can see it up here, but in 2012, 2013, these are fiscal years, Suwannee Valley Transit was in the red, $276,000. And in 2013-14, they were still in the red. 14-15 budget year, they were $339,000 in the red. When we took over, it was a long hill to climb, I'll put it that way. The drivers hadn't had a raise in a long time, and we owed the bank $100,000 on a line of credit. And by November of 2015, we had paid the bank back $100,000 and given the drivers a $1 raise for Christmas. So we still had a little bit of a deficit that year of $173,000, but as you can see, moving forward, 2016 and 17, we jumped up almost to $500,000. By that next year, the following year, we didn't get any vehicles in, which adds into this actual income portion, which shows us at $66,000. And then the following year, 2018, 2019, we were in the plus $221,000. And then in 1920, $481,000. So what we've done, we got more efficient. I had about 42 vehicles when I first got there. We've got 28 vehicles right now. We had an average miles per vehicle of about 270,000 miles per vehicle when I got there. We've now got about 145,000 miles per vehicle. So it was all just trying to take care of the nickel that y'all provide, taking care of the money that we're given. So basically, if there's any questions later on, we'll do that. But basically, they had a $3.8 million budget, or excuse me, $3.5 million budget back then. When I started out, we had about a $1.7 million budget. So the funds were drastically reduced, and we managed to, make some money. We've come about $2 million in the right direction since 2015. The next thing is rides, which you graded on how many people you take. Well, in 2013, they still had contractors, so they had quite a few rides. They had 92,000 rides. And they still had a few contractors who were doing Medicare in 2014, and then we had none at all in 2015. And we started with 3,284 rides that year. And we topped out in 2018 at 55,257. As you can see by the graph, everything's looking fine, and then COVID, we actually would have been higher in 2019, but things started to happen, and then of course you see 2020 dropped off to actually less than where we started. So we've got another hill to climb in the near future. This is a contrast basically of miles and fuel costs. The miles on this 2012, like I said, the contractors were working here showing us their miles, but probably was not paying for fuel. So that's why the big disparity here and then part of this year here. But since 2015, if you'll look, we've come from $260,000 a year in fuel to as low as $103,000 in fuel consumption. So, we've lowered our miles, tried to be efficient, and we also lowered the fuel cost quite a bit. Payroll. In 2013, payroll was $1.3 million. 2014, $1.3 million. Dropped a little bit. There were some real problems here in 2014, 2015. So they laid a lot of people off, and there was less contractors. So basically, when I got it, we were at this point here $880,000 a year in payroll, which to me, it's a pretty high number. Based on working at UPS and other places, I wasn't used to having that high percentage of what we did in payroll. But anyway, you'll see a little spike here in 2016 and 17. That's when after I gave the drivers their dollar raise. I gave another raise in 2017 because they're the ones out on the street every day handling all the different people, going to dialysis, going to the doctors, getting out in the rain, loading people in wheelchairs. They have a hard job, and they weren't getting paid that much when I got here. And they're still not the best paid people in the world, but we're trying to help them. So it just goes basically like the graph shows, and then of course 2019, 2020, when COVID hit, it dropped off again. So that's just a really short, PowerPoint presentation of the health of Suwannee Valley Transit. I think we're pretty fiscally healthy. Our fleet is a lot newer, a lot less miles, and I think the morale of my people is pretty good. And I just do the best every day to, keep this place going and take care of these people in this county. Is there any questions?
I have one.
Commissioner Hale?
Yeah, and I appreciate you coming here, Mr. Sessions, but in all this information, I just want the public to know that me and Mr. Land sit on that board together now. Just become chairman of that board, which I'm thankful for that. And that's just something I wanted to get the message out to our community as to what we had to offer, what the services are. And you mentioned rides. Could you just share with everybody all the different rides that you guys do?
We've got one called a Commuter Assistance. We actually start at 7 every morning in Live Oak, and we go through 12 stops on our way to the college in Lake City for anybody that wants to ride. If they're going to work, if they're going to college, whatever, if they're at one of our locations, we'll pick them up and take them on wherever they want to get off between here and the college. We take people to dialysis Monday through Saturday, except on holidays, we do some Sundays if it has to work out like that. We take people to doctor visits. We've partnered with Columbia County. We were taking people to the COVID vaccination sites. The last 2 weeks, we're actually going to do it again Thursday over there. There's not much that I won't do to try to get people where they need to get. And I know everybody in this room probably has a way to go, but I'll give you an example. Let's say Mr. Bowe over there breaks his leg, his driving leg, and his wife is out of town. He's got to go to the doctor. I can actually pick him up because he has no way to go, even though he has a vehicle and he probably makes plenty of money. But legally, I can pick him up through the Transportation Disadvantage Committee in Tallahassee will allow me to take care of him, to get him where he needs to get. I'm sorry to bring you out in the middle of all this, Bo, but you're an easy target. So anyway, I'm trying to work right now with Madison County and Hamilton County and Suwannee County to get kids over to the college in Madison also. That hasn't come to fruition yet, but there's a new superintendent in Hamilton County that I've got to go visit. And that's another thing we do. We bring kids to River Oak. We take them, like I said, to Gateway. But whoever I can help that's in the kids or people going to work, there's one person right now that's from the ARC in Suwannee County. He actually, the ARC in Hamilton County, and he got hired by Wendy's on 47 in Lake City. They have a program where they hire people with developmental disabilities. And he lives, I don't know if everybody knows where the Woodpecker route is up past White Springs, but he's on up there. And we take him 4 days a week, all the way up there, all the way to Wendy's on 47 and back. So we're doing what we can. We're funded by the DOT. We're funded by the TD Commission in Tallahassee. That's how we get our operating funds. It's a nonprofit. The counties, the 3 counties chip in also to our operations. And it's just something that we're just trying to grow. And we were headed in the right direction rides-wise until, 2020 hit. So we were basically about to double the rides on a quarter of the month. So it's all about efficiency, the way I look at it. So any more questions?
No, I wanted you to, not interrupt you, but I just thank you for coming, because I just wanted the public, and not only just our county, but other counties you represent, to know what services are there, whether you're a student trying to get into school and don't have, a means of transportation, or maybe an elderly person that doesn't have family and needs means of transportation for any kind of medical service.
And like I said, there's every type of scenario you could think of out there. Here.
Thank you.
We have a man right now that's paraplegic, off 247, and he called us and said, "Can you help me?" I said, "As long as you can make that wheelchair, move down the ramp and get to our vehicle, we can get you and get you taken care of." So there's just another satisfied customer. We take a man in Fort White that is in pretty bad shape, and we do what we can for him. We've lost a lot of our clients, dialysis clients and things like this, because they have a shorter life than most people. And my people love the people that they take care of, and it hurts when you lose somebody who's been taken care of for 15 years or whatever, because I've got drivers who've been around that long, and, they've been hauling these patients and these clients. So it's not like it's just a business. It's something that we want to do every day, and my drivers are, they're professionals. They're really good people, and they care about the people they take care of.
Mr. Larry, I think Commissioner Fleming has a question or a comment.
Yes, sir. I was going to ask you about, you still doing Suwannee, Hamilton, and Columbia,
Yes,
but I
sir.
think you mentioned something about Madison. That would be including Madison also? If you
No,
get-
Madison, what we can do with Madison, as long as we pick people up from from this county, we can take them anywhere.
Okay.
I've taken people to doctor appointments in Jacksonville, Tallahassee, Perry. So as long as they start in these 3 counties, then I can take them anywhere. But so that's why I was interested in taking care of kids getting to the college in Madison, because we've never, not since I've been here, we've never done that. And I think it's just another opportunity for kids, you know, even, or if somebody's working in Madison, I'll drop them off wherever they're at on the way, you know. We'll figure it out.
Well, I'm gonna give you a comment. I say a job well done, because I served on that board 2010, 11, and 12, and it was delirious there. And to see it come back with this chart, you're doing a fine job. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Larry. We appreciate you this evening. At this time, we'll move back to item number 15, our time-specific items. Before we get into it, before I open the public hearing, I got a couple of comments I'd like to make. To start with, we'll open the public hearing and we will combine all the partials into a single public hearing, so I won't be opening and closing for four or five times here. Also, at that point, I will allow the applicants' representatives to present their comments. Then we'll open the floor to public comment. And then the representatives will be given an opportunity to answer any questions from the public or any questions that the commissioners have. Also, at this time, after reviewing the amount of information we have here, I'm going to ask, with consensus of this board tonight, that we open this public hearing and we listen to the presentation, but I would ask that the board consider having more time to research everything here. I've had some inquiries and questions and comments, and basically I received this packet on Friday evening, and it's just a lot to go through. And we've moved this up because our meeting is usually tomorrow, so we moved our meeting up a day, and it's kind of tightened that schedule up. But gentlemen, I would ask that you would consider us continue the hearing on, and to have a vote on it on April 20th.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, if that's what you're asking. Yeah.
I'm fine with it, Mr. Chairman, because just like you said, I just received this packet on Friday, and then we moved our meeting up a day in order for that legislative conference this week. So I'd much rather hear than we come back and vote on it.
I just feel like with some of these things, we found out in the past that we tried to get through it real quickly, and we may have, it pushed us to make decisions without clearly looking at everything. That's, so I just asked for that additional time. If I have a consensus of that, then we'll move forward and I'll open the.
You said April the 20th?
Yes, sir. That would be
March, I think, or you talking about April?
April.
Okay.
4 weeks,
It's a regular board
the
meeting.
regular board meeting.
Mr. Chairman, for clarification, if I could, that would be item 15, 16, 17, and 18, is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. That you're combining?
Yes, sir.
Like I said, I don't have a problem. I was actually out of town this weekend. I was able to scan through it on my phone, but that's not like having it in front of you.
Right, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like having this total book in front of you with all the backup documentation.
Right.
Okay, I feel I have consensus for that, so we're going to move forward. At this time, I will open the public hearing. It said, item number 15, at 6:05 PM or as soon thereafter as the matter can be heard, hold a public hearing to consider adoption of resolution approving special permit number SP-21-03-01. We'll add item 16, special permit number SP-21-03-02. 17, item 17, SP-21-03-03. And 18, special permit SP-21-03-04. At this time, if there's anyone that feels like they would like to speak tonight, we will have our county attorney swear them in. Mr. Pravat?
Thank you. Like the chairman said, if you think you may want to have testimony here this evening, would you all stand, please, and raise your right hand? All right. Do each of you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give this evening will be the truth, so help you God?
Do.
All right, thank you. As you approach the podium to speak, when the appropriate time comes, please state your name and address clearly for the record. Thank you.
At this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Meeks. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. As you previously went over, the action of the Board of County Commissioners would be upon all four applications, as it is one solar site. Same agent that's acting on behalf of multiple property owners. Special permit number 21-03-01 consists of a 78.65 acre parcel of property. Special permit 21-03-02 consists of 186.65 acres. Special permit 21-03-03 is 160.74 acres, and the special permit 21-03-04 is 157.3 and an additional 51.67 acres. The application that is provided for all four applications is made by Charlet Holdings, LLC, and it is the intent to construct a 74.9 megawatt solar facility on approximately 634 acres. Subject property is located in an agricultural 1 zoning district in the southeastern portion of Suwannee County. Land use regulations list utilities and related facilities as an available special permit that can be approved by the Board of County Commissioners. As you'll see in all of the supporting documentation, there's a synopsis of the project, kind of outlining what their request actually is. There's a detailed portion of that that includes a compatibility study, which shows the surrounding land uses, how they've tried to address the points in the Suwannee County land use regulations as it pertains to what the board has to look at in making their approvals or their denials for special permit requests. They've also included a site plan. We had a digital copy of that was provided to the board. We also had a printed copy that shows that, and as you can see, the unique configuration of the parcels that are included as part of the request. It does involve multiple property owners. The site plan does show the proposed 25-foot buffer, which will contain the landscaping between adjoining landowners and the internal fencing that would be part of the security measures for the solar site on the property border. The site plan also shows the required 300-foot setback that we had required for the inverters, and that line would be located on the innermost portion inside the security fencing and also inside the landscape buffering that would be required on the site. The applicant has requested some changes as it pertains to the list of conditions that we've made part of the solar sites. I believe we've had one application that came before the board where we had an amended set of conditions that they would have to adhere to. In some conversations with the applicant, there was a couple of things that they wanted to try to modify. They talked with myself, they talked with County Attorney, Mr. Pravat. We both indicated to them that we could not authorize those changes. Changes would have to be voted upon to the Board of County Commissioners. So they provided a mock-up with some comments in regard to some of those proposed changes. I'm just going to kind of touch on the project as a whole, as I know the applicants have a presentation that they would like to present to the board that's going to provide a lot more answers, and then probably bring up some questions in regards to how they want to construct the site. So without me taking up all the agenda items on the list, outside of that, you have, like I had mentioned before, the set of conditions that they've addressed some changes. They're not a substantial amount of changes, but they have addressed a couple of them, and it would be something that the board would have to address if they do decide to take action and approve the resolution. The resolution's written to include all four of the applications in one adoption. So if it was challenged or anything like that, it would be one action that they would be opposing or challenging and not multiple applications that the board would have to adopt a separate resolution on. We seem that would be the most easiest way to address that. In looking at the development of the site, it is, like the others have been, an unmanned site. The biggest impact is going to be during construction phase. We've had the conversations with the applicants regarding impacts that would potentially happen on county transportation routes that would, may be impacted by construction equipment and things like that. And they've agreed to have a pre and post inspection done and address any of the matters that would come up as a concern or damage that was done for the site. After that, then the site would require minimal trips during a month or during any type of maintenance that would be done on the site. At this time, the applicant's agent is present to present to the board their application, go over anything that I've missed or left out. They can go into the more of the specifics on what they're proposing to do on the site and how it relates to their timeframes, as well as some of the conditional changes that they've proposed. So at this time, if you don't have any questions of me, I would enter the file into the record.
Thank you, Mr. Meeks. Do I have any questions from the board for Mr. Meeks at this time?
No, sir.
Seeing none, thank you, sir. At this time, I would ask the applicants if they have a representative that would like to speak, to please come forward. Just state your name and address for the record to begin with, and welcome, sir.
Thanks. My name is Landon Abernathy. I'm Director of Development at Birdseye Renewable Energy. I live at 2850 Virginia Avenue, Charlotte, North Carolina. Thank you all for having us tonight. I'm disappointed to hear that we're not moving to a vote tonight. I'm not disappointed to hear that I'll be coming back down here. So it's gorgeous. Hopefully the weather holds out for our next hearing here. I will ask though, and I'm going to describe a little bit, what the status of the project is and where we're at in our process. But as I understand, this board holds hearings on first and third Tuesdays typically. If we could move this up to the first Tuesday in April, rather than waiting the full month, if we could get a two-week extension here, it would really help out our time and allow us to move forward on a potential accelerated path that we're on for this project. So, don't need an answer now, but that is something that we'll ask you to take into consideration. So, as I mentioned, I'm Landon Abernathy. I'm Director of Development at Birdseye. Birdseye, we're a utility-scale solar developer. We've been active since 2009. We focus on southeast solar development, primarily ground-mounted utility-scale solar. 2009, that put us right at the very beginning of really the acceleration of this industry for utility-scale solar across the Southeast. And we've had a lot of success in the industry. We've developed 45 projects to date, totaling up some 550 megawatts, over 3,000 acres of solar in production. And I should mention, we are a pure developer, meaning that we do not build, operate solar farms. We really focus on origination of sites, conception of sites, and take them up to the point where they're ready to be constructed. And at that point, we partner with either investor-owned utilities that own and operate the project over the long term as part of their generating fleet, or we partner with independent power producers, negotiate long-term power purchase agreements with the utility, and the sites are owned and operated independently. But either way, the energy goes back onto the grid. This model's been really great for us in that it really allows us to focus on what we're good at, which is siting, origination, development, community engagement, stakeholder engagement. just making sure that we're providing, best-in-class solar projects. And as, demand increases for solar across the Southeast, I know Florida's on a real upswing right now, similar to what we went through in North Carolina in the past 11 years. There's going to be more demand for more solar projects. They're increasing in scale as a general trend, and Birdseye is just hyper-conscious of making sure that all of those benefits that come along with solar power are realized, but that we're not negatively impacting the communities where we're located, and that's something that's really important for us. So the project that we've got here tonight, we've been working on this one since 2017. We are at a point right now where we're reaching the very end of our interconnection process, which is kind of the long tent pole here, and ready to sign final interconnection agreements, which set off a group of milestones that take us towards actually starting and building this project. And I'll talk a little bit about the schedule, but anything that we can do to accelerate, this is sort of one of our final outstanding items that are preventing us from moving forward on an accelerated schedule here. So if we could be heard in early April, it'd be greatly appreciated. Couple folks that I'd like to introduce here from my team that I've got with me tonight. So again, I'm Director of Development at Birdseye. I've also got Ken Metcalf here. Ken is with Stearns & Weaver out of Tallahassee. Ken's been helping us out, just understanding your local code and regulations, working a lot with Mr. Meeks and Mr. Pravat, just helping us make sure we've got everything buttoned up for your consideration. And it's his fault we dropped a giant book of stuff on you guys. So when you're up late reading, you can thank Ken. Also got Rich Kirkland here. Rich is a MAI certified appraiser. Rich has looked at hundreds of solar farms across the Southeast, a real wealth of knowledge, looked at impact on neighboring property values. He works with us across all of our footprints and takes a look at projects and makes sure that we're doing everything we can possibly do to make sure that we're not impacting neighboring property values. I've got Chris Sandifer here. Chris is an electrical engineering contractor. He's available to answer any questions you may have on health, safety, solar as a general use. And finally, Carrie Lang. So Carrie is my project manager from Birdseye on this project, and guru on all things Charlotte Holdings. So what we would like to do, I've got a packet to insert into the record that we'll give to the clerk. This is the book that you referenced, all of our application materials. Inside of there, you're going to find everything that came along with the application. You're also going to find a couple supplemental materials, a letter from Carolyn Saft at the Suwannee Ag Extension in support of our buffering strategy. Carolyn was not able to join us tonight, but wanted to provide that. And then we've got an exhibit confirming adjacent parcels with existing homes on them. So, I don't want to spend too terribly much time here. I know that this county has seen solar use. You have solar in the county. You've seen a number. Thank you, Ken. Seen a number of these applications come through for special permit. So I'm not going to go dig deep on the use, but would just like to think a little bit and call out for you guys as you're digging into these materials how we sited, developed, designed the project to avoid and mitigate any potential impacts, ensure compliance, compatibility with the comprehensive plan, and with your local LDRs, your code. In general, I will say the proposed project's been carefully thought through, cited, and designed just to ensure that it really is quiet, it's safe, it's low to the ground, it's low traffic, it's passive, and it's compatible use. And Ken can speak a bit more to the specifics of how we are compatible with the land development regulations and the comprehensive plan. Along the same lines, we've been really careful with our setbacks and our buffers to ensure that there wouldn't be impact on property values, which Rich is here to speak to. This is a good opportunity for our landowners and, others that participate in solar in the county to realize revenue on their land, to keep land in the family with a stable revenue source for multiple generations into the future. And all of that, is really without impacting the neighbors when it's done correctly, which this project is. Also greatly increases tax revenues that the county realizes. We're modeling 80 to 100 times the amount that would be realized under agriculture current use that this project is in right now, or this area is in. So I want to think a little bit and draw your attention to where we're located and the work that we did on site, and why we like this site in particular down here between Branford and Fort White. And so what we're looking at here, there's a transmission line that runs kind of northwest to southeast across the site. That's a 69 kV Duke transmission line that hooks into the Fort White substation. And Fort White is a pretty major hub for North Florida electrical transmission. So back in 2017, when I was looking for sites, I identified this line pretty early on for all of North Florida, that this is where we'd like to be. As I started scouting sites up and down this line, the Hatch property was far and away the best. It's just a really nice kind of tucked back piece of property here adjacent to the cement facility and the lime rock mining operation, tucked well back up off of 27, so it's not visible from that major transportation corridor, but does allow easy access in and out of the site. And in talking with the Hatches, they've got an 865-acre holding out here. We knew that we weren't going to need that much land for the size of the project. This is a 74.9 megawatt project. And our hope was that they would be flexible with us, let us site this project and make sure that it's backed well back off of residential or any other adjacent uses. And as soon as we started talking to the Hatches, readily apparent that our values were aligned there. They've got long and deep roots in this community, deep relationships with people out here that live out here. And, just like us, wanted to make sure that we were well set back and that we're not injuring any of these neighboring uses. So, a lot of reasons we really like this one. Another, I'll just point real quickly, just all of the existing vegetation that we are able to use for our buffering. So we weren't going to have to come back out here and plant buffers around the entire thing. There's nice thick vegetation, and I've got some photos that I can show you guys. But from those highly traveled, transportation corridors of 27, you're not going to be able to see the site. And then we've actually backed a minimum of 1,500 feet back off of Sand Hill Road. That's County Road 137, leads up to the Ichituckney Springs. Just wanted to be really careful that folks traveling along that corridor up to the state park weren't looking, straight out over a solar farm, similar to what you're doing up here on 10 when you enter Live Oak. So the site plan itself, and I'm sorry, I should just jump back real quick to neighbor outreach. So as soon as it became apparent at the end of last year that we had a clear path to interconnection, this project was going to work, started reaching out to all of our neighbors, reaching out to Mr. Pravat, Mr. Meeks, who've both been really generous with their time as they've worked through the application. Sent out about 40 mailers. All of our adjacent neighboring parcels got mailers directly from us, letting us know what we were doing. We held a community meeting. Folks who didn't attend that community meeting that we felt like could have some impact, we reached out directly to them, sent backup letters, called them directly, had a lot of conversations, a lot of stuff around buffering setbacks, the construction process, construction sequencing, solar as a general use. And in general, this was looked on really favorably. We did not identify any contention, any opposition of any of the neighbors to what we're proposing here. And I think, everyone realized with the plan that we came in, the setbacks, the areas that we left out of the project, that we were really doing our very best to make sure that there was not an impact on their uses. And then some folks in the area, really see this as a low-impact buffer against a higher impact use over on the western side with the cement facility and the mining facility. A low impact use, a bit of an insurance policy over the next 20 to 40 years that higher impact use is not going to encroach closer to them. So getting into the site plan a little bit here, and I know you guys have this for review. It's dense. There's a lot in here. I'm happy to go into this in as much detail as you would like here tonight. But, really what this plan does is work hand in hand with the 23 site conditions that Mr. Meeks referenced in his presentation, and just making sure we're compatible, we're compliant, we've mitigated or straight up avoided any negative impacts of the project. I will say we largely worked from the previously approved site conditions. We made some revisions specific to this site and some of the strategies that we've got on site here. But largely, you guys had a really good list of conditions to work from. We made some tweaks around the edges, but largely left those intact. So a couple areas that I would briefly like to talk about where the site plan in relation to the conditions, we're really treating these conditions as they're written as a bare minimum. So 50 feet off of public right-of-ways, 50 feet off of vacant or ag land, 100 feet off of residential use is kind of the baseline. 300 feet from any property line to an inverter or noise-making part of the system. Those are our minimums, and really we've tried to go above and beyond here. So where in your dotted yellow lines around the perimeter, these are the required setbacks, and then you'll see in the purple envelope, everything that's crosshatched purple, that's where we're actually building our facility. So we wanted to make sure that there's a residence here off of 41st. There's 3 residential uses a little bit further north on the west or the east side of 41st. We've completely blown out the setbacks in those cases. So across from this property, we actually left this 40 acres completely out of the project, so they didn't feel like they're getting tunneled in as they approach their homes. On the back side of the 3 residences here, we pushed 300 feet off of their back property line and over 700 feet off of their front property line. So making absolute sure that when they're approaching their homes, they're not tunneled in on both sides by solar. And then we've given ourselves an additional condition here on the site plan where any existing home, we're putting in a 300-foot buffer to our nearest fence line before you get to that. So here on this property, over here on the far west side, you see where we kind of jog down our line here. Just make sure we don't get within 300 feet of those folks. Same deal over here, and then there's one up on the northeast part of the site as well. And just again, trying to go above and beyond and avoid any potential impacts. So looking at buffers now, I mentioned in the beginning, we really like this site because there's a lot of existing buffer for us to take advantage of here. A lot of planted pine in different phases of growth, a lot of just natural volunteer regrowth around the perimeters. So I've been riding around with our landowners for the past 2 days and just getting an idea of exactly what's out there and exactly what we're showing on this plan. So on the site plan, everything in dark green that you're seeing, these areas, all of these perimeter areas, all around here, dark green means leaving existing buffers in place. Light green are areas where we either need to supplement that or come in with a new planted buffer. But everywhere, we've just got really nice, dense exterior buffers around the majority of this site against all of those heavily traveled transportation corridors, against 23 of the 24 adjacent residential uses that we can take advantage of. So, as dense and thick as they could be, everywhere that we've got buffers that look more like this. So I grabbed a couple of photos where we don't have existing buffers to take care of. This one is along 266, so that moves east to west across the site. between 45th and out to County Road 137. There's some areas in there where it really is just a fence line and then some land that's been set out in crops for recent years. So we're going to need to come in and buffer those areas. And then we've got a lot of areas that look like this, where you've got intermittent, nice, dense buffer areas, but it needs to be supplemented if we're going to really hit a good visual buffer in there. So you'll see on our site plan, there are areas where we've got them backed up, right, side by side, a little bit of dark green, a little bit of light green. And I don't interpret this as a survey of what's out there. It means that we know there's some existing vegetation that we're going to take advantage of, and we're going to need to expand that. Along all of our public right-of-ways, we're going to get that out to 30 feet, even along the very back side of the property where it's not impacting anyone. We will shrink that down to a minimum of 25 feet. Just make sure everybody's got a good buffer all the way around. So one of the areas on the site plan that in the conditions that I do want to spend some time talking about is what we're doing with our new planted buffer. This is a strategy that we've been working on across our portfolio, the whole Southeast. We've got 11 years of solar in North Carolina now. We're number 2 installed capacity in the country behind California. So, we're a little bit ahead of where Florida is at right now. And you can go out to these solar farms and see how are the buffers doing? How's that holding up? And what we're finding is in some cases, it's not as good as we had hoped. And so what we're doing is coming with a different strategy here. Rather than looking at a typical urban style, commercial single or staggered row buffer, we're trying, our goal here is to kickstart and accelerate what would happen naturally on this site. And, we're in a good region for this where I'll show you guys some photos of just natural volunteer growth that just grows into a really nice thick buffer. But what we've been doing is working directly with the Suwannee Ag Extension, directly with a number of local native purveyors of native species, and just putting together a plan that's going to provide a much better visual buffer. It's also going to provide a range of wildlife, ecological, even agricultural benefits. By going in with all natives, we're supporting pollinator species, we're supporting beneficial insects that can have some real agricultural benefits. It's really a win-win. So what we've been doing with Carolyn Saft over at the Ag Extension is she's helped us put together a group of species and a density and a width that does a number of things. So number one, it's got to be a dense visual screen. That's our number one priority. It's also going to lack a need for irrigation because we're going to go in all native species that are acclimated for this climate and this region. We've got a management plan where we're going in at the right size and at the right time of year to ensure that we can get establishment there. And you'll see in your conditions, in your previously approved conditions, they are asking for a minimum of 36 inches at planting. I revised that to 24 inches, and again, this is a minimum, but what we're measuring on isn't actually the height of the species when you put it in the ground, it's the age. So what we're going to be doing is 3-gallon plant material, native plant material, and depending on the species that's going in there, that'll be between 24 and 36 inches. We've also asked for a revision on the growth rates, and again, this is in collaboration with the Suwannee Ag Extension. Ms. Saft has warned us that overemphasis on these really fast-growing species, all of the energy in that plant material is just going into making it tall, getting tall, and not establishing an adequate root structure. Those species can be really brittle, and when you guys are getting these high winds at various times a year, if I've got 8-foot material in there with no root and the whole thing blows over and dies, we're back to square one in terms of our visual service. So what we're asking for here would be, we're going to go 80% opacity is still our target, and 6 feet of height at 36 months. Completely comfortable that we can meet or exceed that, but I don't want to stand up here and tell you guys that I'm going to be able to hit an effective visual screen at 8 feet in 30 months. It's just not a target that we or the Ag Extension feels like we could stand behind. And let me give you just a little bit of an idea of what's going on just on a volunteer basis out here. And really, this is our target. This is what we're looking at. So this is an existing buffer along 272nd on the left here. This is stuff that's come up completely on its own, completely volunteer over the years, no irrigation, just the native seed bank. And everything that we're planting, the idea is we're going to build out density with what we're planting, but we're also making an environment that's friendly for natural successional regrowth and just a natural buffering that grows in nice and thick like this. We've selected primarily evergreen species, so we're going to have that good year-round visual screen in there. Yeah, so it's a plan that we're proud of. We're proud to have Suwannee Ag Extension behind it, and happy to answer more questions, as we go through this. And we can talk a little bit more about this. And then just last point before I sit down or open it up to questions, just a reiteration here that 25 feet is a minimum. That's increased from a 20-foot minimum in the previously approved conditions, but we're actually going 30 feet on either side of any public right-of-way, even off of these, lightly traveled gravel or dirt graded roads that this project is accessed by. So, Mr. Meeks kind of ran through at a high level the conditions where we've asked for some deviation from what was previously approved by this board. I'm happy to go through these line by line and really talk about exactly what we're trying to do here. It's not as bad as it sounds or as bad as it looks. There's probably only 4 or 5 conditions in here where we've asked for some deviation from the norm. We've provided this document for your review, just giving a little in a nutshell what our justification is. But yeah, maybe I can just hit the high points and we can get through them real quick and then open up for questions. So the first one, number 6, is on signage. We are asking for a monument sign at the permanent site entrances once it goes into operation. Those would be located outside of the public right-of-way on the project property. Fencing is another one where what was previously approved was 8-foot fence. National Electric Code and industry standard is actually 7 feet. We feel that 7-foot fence is going to tuck in better behind our buffering. It'll be easier for us to shield it. And there's no real security benefit to that additional foot of material. It's been our experience that if somebody's coming in, they're coming through it with clippers, not over the top anyway. So we would ask for a shorter fence there. We talked about the screening in number 11 and 13. Mr. Meeks touched on number 14 with road access to the site. Just making sure that we're confirming here that the expectation is that we return those roads in the same condition that we found them. Vehicular ingress and egress to the site, number 15. I've been working closely with the fire marshal, Mr. White. We've reviewed the fire code. We've reviewed his blueprint specs on his equipment that he wants to get in and out of there. So we tweaked the language in here just to confirm this would be a spec for a utility-owned generation project. Confirmed with him that that's adequate for what he needs to get his engine in and out of the site, and drew some distinction between going to the substation and going out into the equipment areas, and just the width of those roads and then the aggregate surface on top of those roads. Concurrency, that's touched on, but we added a condition here that we'll be submitting our drainage plan that will be regulated through the ERP permit, the environmental resource permit through the Department of Environmental Protection, and that will be all good there. Then number 21 on the bond. So this one is one where we're not changing your mechanics. We understand the county's position here that you need a bond in place for decommissioning of this project at the end of life. What we are adding is In the event that a regulated utility owns and operates this project, just providing some flexibility that they have an avenue to come back to you guys, talk about that bond, take their credit into consideration. I think it really changes the risk profile of the county if this is owned by an independent producer. There's a much higher risk of them defaulting on their decommissioning requirements at the end of life. Whereas, an FPL or a Duke, a regulated utility, doesn't come with that same risk. So all of your language on the bond is still in here, just a sentence saying that we'd have the flexibility, if they own the project, to come back and try to negotiate a subsequent agreement at your discretion. And then finally, the length of the special permit, and this is one that I typically ask for 3 years. On this one, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we're on a bit of an abbreviated track here, if we can move quickly. So I'm asking for 2 years rather than the previously approved 1 year where that permit would expire. And what happens here at the end of the interconnection process is we have to put down large capital deposits in order to keep the transmission side of the utility moving towards their goals. And that's typically a 3-year timeline. So from when I signed that agreement, it's going to take them somewhere between 2 and 3 years to build their substation, do upgrades up and down the line that are needed to interconnect the project. But we're putting down all of our capital on the front end, and they're drawing against that. So for our finance, it's really important to us that money, that capital spent, is not at risk, as we are moving towards the project being delivered, even if there's not physical construction happening on site yet. So we'll ask you for 2 years on this one, and crossing our fingers that we can be heard in early April and keep this on track for our accelerated timeline here.
I will speak to the time that I asked for this to come back before the board, and I asked for the 20th, reason being, on the 6th, we have a public hearing that concerns gaming, casinos, hours of operations. And I feel certain we'll have a house full here. And I just don't feel like you're going to get our undivided attention, if you know what I'm saying.
Understood.
So I would, obviously, it's the pleasure of the board, but I would ask to stick with the 20th. With that being said, if I didn't have a loaded agenda on the 6th, then it wouldn't be an issue.
Okay, yeah, and maybe we can follow up with Mr. Pravat after the meeting and see if there's any alternative options for a special meeting or something along those lines. But we can do that offline.
Well, basically
Or it is what it is.
well, the board's going to have. He's going to have to reach out to the board to see what their pleasure is.
Well, maybe
I don't have a problem with doing it on the 13th if the board doesn't. We're having to meet every week right now to update an emergency order for COVID. I don't have a problem with adding this to the meeting of the 13th if the board is so inclined to do so. And we listen to it at that time if that's not a problem.
Good.
Is that fine, Mr. Pravat?
Yes, sir.
Is everyone else okay with that? So we'll do it on the 13th.
we really appreciate that. What I would like to do is not bring my expert testimonials back with us again. So I may just real briefly have them say a quick piece, get it onto the record tonight. But any questions for me while I'm up here?
I've got a couple, and the answers may be in here somewhere that I haven't got to.
Let me point them. Yeah.
Do you have a warranty period on the plantings that you're intending to do?
We were talking about that this morning. So we were actually on site with some construction groups, talking through exactly what that buffering looks like and how we're sure that we're getting what we're paid for. So yeah, that will be a piece of the negotiation here. And the intent here that we want to be held to is clearly your 80% opacity target. Regardless of what I'm showing on the site plan, even if I'm saying that we're leaving vegetation in place, the intent is that either needs to be filled in so we can hit that 80% opacity target from the property line, or, if it's sufficient as it is, we'll leave it there.
Thank you. Do I have any questions from the board at this time? Mr. Commissioner White.
Thank you. on the plantings, you say you're not putting any irrigation in on that?
That's right. And so what we've done is worked with Ms. Saft at the Ag Extension. We've worked with a group called Chapani Farms out of Hawthorne, Florida. Chapini, sorry. They do a good bit of work on restoration and, really don't even recommend irrigation for this kind of strategy. I've got some photos that have shown of what's just come up on a volunteer basis, but by planting at the right size, the right time of year, and just being as conscious as we've been about the species that we're putting in, irrigation won't be needed. We will have the ability, if it's a dry season, they'll be watered in when we do the plantings, of course. And
Well, that was what I was going to ask you.
Yep. And then, that contract will extend on out when it gets subcontracted, that it's going to hit those growth targets.
We're fortunate here on this board to have a plant expert. That's a commissioner, so we're going to lean on him for making sure we get a
We're
good
going to get out of
stand.
my depth quick, I'll be honest. So, I'm glad that we've got a little bit of time here, and I influence you to call Ms. Saft at the Ag Extension. She provided a letter there in support, but, she's excited about this, feels confident that it's going to work. We're excited about it.
I see that you spent quite a bit of time on discussing bufferings. It sounds like you've done your homework and seen that we've had some problems with that.
We've had problems, and even beyond that, it's a bit of a personal interest, a bird's eye. It's just a real win-win opportunity, rather than coming in with traditional landscaping cultivars, monocrop all the way, just soldiers lined up. There's some really cool stuff we can do in terms of ecological, wildlife, agricultural benefits. The support that's provided to pollinators and beneficial insects, it's real. When it comes to crop season, these folks are importing pollinators in a lot of cases. It's something that we can do to provide a better buffer, and a buffer that comes with a lot of additional benefits that we're excited to stand behind.
Thank you. Do I have any other questions at this time? No, sir. Thank you, sir.
I have one
Thank you.
question.
Yes?
I do have one question, just sitting here thinking and talking about it. And you may be crazy thinking this, but do those panels, are they affected by, say, the pollen? Because I can look at my windshield every morning and see that. And the dust from the dirt roads I see you guys are going to be building to. I mean, I would think the buffering would help.
It
a
will.
lot of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in this part of the world, you tend to get a good bit of humidity, morning dew, a good bit of just humidity in the atmosphere, rain showers blowing through that we wouldn't typically envision doing any sort of cleaning of modules like you'd see in Arizona, Nevada, out in the desert, where that's really common. California right now, all the wildfires, there's a whole cottage industry of people washing modules. So, it's something that can be done, that if it needs to be done, the modules can be washed, but that wouldn't be planned.
Gotcha.
How'd you ask that, Don? I would just ask somebody that, I think it was yesterday, did they have to wash those panels off? Didn't know.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Real briefly, I'm going to call up just Chris Sandifer, our engineer, get him on the record here so we don't drag him back down here, unless he wants to come, spring break.
Welcome, sir. Just your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. My name is Chris Sandifer. I live at 3118, my office is at 3118 Green Road, Spring Hope, North Carolina 27882. I am a licensed professional engineer in the state of Florida. I'm a licensed electrical contractor with unlimited classification. I serve on the Nash County Planning Board, and we've approved 37 utility scale solar farms to date. And so we're pretty much got what we're going to get. The lines are full. So, I mean, there may be some more people make application. I don't think we turn them down, but I don't think, I've worked with utility for 30 years, Duke, before I left them in 2010 or so, that was my job, was interconnections. So I knew it from the utility side as well as as a developer. I'm the engineer record for hundreds of solar facilities in the Carolinas. I also am a farmer, and I have about 100 acres under panels now, so that I lease to, not Birdseye, but to a similar developer. And so I've done decommissioning plans, I've done glare studies. If there's any question you guys have these things, I'll be glad to discuss any aspect of it. I just want to say up front, in my professional opinion, this project as installed will not materially impact the safety of the residents of Suwannee County. So I know that's one of the findings of facts, and I just want to say that without hesitation, any kind of equivocation, I would not have put something like this on my family if I thought it was going to be detrimental to the value of the land or whatever they might want to do in 20 or 30, 40 years, whenever it is. So I'm here to answer questions,
We don't have any questions at this time?
talk about the operations, and anything you want to talk about, technical standpoint, that's what I'm here for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Hi. Rich Kirkland. My address is 9408 Northfield Court, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27603. Landon just asked me to come up here and just present some of the findings I've found looking at property impacts around solar farms. I guess I should start off with, I'm certified general in North Carolina. That's really where I'm home based, but I'm also certified general appraiser in the state of Florida and about 6 other states as well. I've been looking at solar farms for the last 12 years. In that time, I've looked at about 750 solar farms in 19 states. I've looked at, for this analysis, I've looked at 25 different solar farms here in Florida. Really, what we're looking at when I'm looking at these is trying to identify where they're located, what's around them, how close they get to homes. But also, I'm looking for any sales of homes around these solar farms so I can measure to see if there's been any impact on those sales prices. Here in Florida, I've identified 4 solar farms that I could find sales to, that I could measure and do matched pair analysis. Matched pair analysis or paired sales analysis is what the Appraisal Institute really puts forward as a solid way to measure if there's an impact. You look at a property that's sold next to a solar farm, in this case what we're testing for is a solar farm, and then you compare it to 3 or 4 other homes that are similar in most ways and look to see if there's any impact that you can isolate that would just be attributable to that solar farm. So from those 4 solar farms, I found 8 different sales, worked up 8 different matched pair analysis, and again, they're pretty much falling in line with what I'm finding across the Southeast and nationwide as well, is that most of the findings fall in a very tight range between +5 and -5%, which is really the standard static you'd find in real estate. Real estate's an imperfect market. You can have 2 identical homes next to each other. They'll sell for slightly different prices. It's just the way things work. So when you look at the aggregate of them, maybe I'll go down some other statistics and I'll talk to you about the aggregate. But I've also looked at, just in the report that you have a copy of, I've looked at projects throughout the Southeast, spanning beyond just Florida, just everything in the Southeast. From that, I've pulled 24 solar farms where I was able to pull matched pairs, and pulled up and wrote up 52 matched pairs that you've got the data for that you can look at there. And these are looking at projects that range from 5 megawatts up to, I want to say 80 megawatts is the high end of that range. Most of the ones in Florida are really in the 75 megawatt range. So yeah, again, and I also have 10 land sales looking at agricultural or residential land sales that happen next to those that are, again, showing some variability, but again, no measurable impact. When I look nationally, expanding just over all the states I've looked at, I've identified 48 solar farms, and from those, 115 matched pairs. So when I talk about the aggregate, when you look at the plus and minuses of all of these, most of these are falling in the plus or minus 5% range that I was talking about. That's just normal real estate static. And if you look at those, you can see the charts in the report themselves. You can see the data points of those. Most of those are on the positive side. In fact, there's more positive hits than negative hits by far. So regardless of that, and the aggregate showing about a +1 to +2% impact on these property values, so it's suggesting that there was a +1, +2% positive impact being next to solar farms, it's just in the static, and we just consider that to be no impact on property value. Again, we've been looking at these, we've been looking at how close they are and the mix of uses around them. Specifically here in Florida, the mix is almost identical to what I see across the southeast. Most of the uses are residential and agricultural. If I look at the adjoining uses based on acreage, the most common adjoining use is going to be agriculture. If I look at the adjoining uses based on the number of parcels, the most common adjoining use is residential. And they're really located in these areas where you need to open space where you can put the panels, but you also need to have the infrastructure to pull the power out and put it on the grid. So this is a very typical location here in this project here. Adjoining uses are actually set back a lot further. The match pairs that I've looked at have homes as close as 105 feet when you measure from the closest panel to the closest point on the home. In this case, there won't be homes anywhere near that close. The closest home will be at least 300 feet away, so it's at least 3 times further back. And the average that I measured is over 700 feet, so it's a significantly larger setback than what you would typically see. I've also looked at some national studies done by some universities. I addressed those in the report. There's 2 main ones you look at. University of Texas at Austin. They did it's really not even a measuring of market data. They surveyed appraisers. And I've spoken with the researchers involved with that. And you can see in here, I show a breakdown, but when they isolate the responses from appraisers who have a background or experience looking at solar farms or properties next to them, that they're showing impacts from basically plus or minus 3%. In fact, they do have a chart in there I've included this in my report, you can look at it, but they include the responses from appraisers who have no experience with it, and they self-identify saying, I've never appraised anything next to a solar farm, and I don't know anything about it, but here's my opinion. They have really wide, spread out opinions of impact. But again, they have no experience in that area, and the primary concern with that is an appraiser gives a response where they haven't done the research is actually in violation of the uniform standards of professional appraisal practice. You're not supposed to guess. You need to do the research before you answer questions when it comes to opinions of value. So that study, the conclusion by the researchers was that they would have no impact on property values, even as close as 100 feet away. And they tested for different megawatt sizes of projects. Similarly, there's a study that came out of Rhode Island, came out about 6 months ago, and that one gets some highlight because it actually in the abstract concludes and says there is a negative impact being near solar farms. Again, I've spoken with the researchers, and the researchers themselves in their presentations have some significant caveats with that conclusion. That conclusion is based on their study that was done in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, which are the second and third most populous states in the nation. And they also concluded that in rural areas, it had no impact on property value. It was really only in those really high-density population suburban areas that they were looking at. And they didn't really measure and tell you at what point they cut off. I pushed and talked to them quite a bit about where does it flip from no impact to you now say there's an impact. But they confirmed that even where population density counts are 2,000 people per square mile, they found no impact. In this area where this project's located there's the township out there is about 56 people per square mile. It's way below that threshold. It's much more of a rural location. And again, the conclusion put out by the Rhode Island studies, again, suggests no impact on property value. So I'll go ahead and stop right there. I have to go into greater detail or discuss any of the matched pairs or any of the data I've got, but it's my professional opinion that this project as proposed is going to have no impact on the adjoining property values and that this is a harmonious location for a solar farm. This is very similar in mix of adjoining uses. It's further away from adjoining homes than in most situations that I look at, even when I look across Florida. And again, this is, the data is showing no impact. So I'd be happy to go into greater detail or answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. At this time, do I have any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I was just, Mr.
Commissioner
Kirkland,
Lamb.
right?
Yes.
I'm a real estate guy. I'm glad that you spoke about the University of Texas study. I spent a lot of time reading this last night, and I was intrigued by the 2 studies that the University of Rhode Island had did, and also the University of Texas. But the 56 people per square mile, that's well below the threshold that you just talked about, and all the data that backs up in these rural areas how solar farms do not negatively affect property values of adjacent properties. And also, I was just going to note that I was really impressed with your resume. I'd say you are a well-educated real estate guy.
Thank you very much.
I have any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, do we have any other persons that wish to speak on your behalf?
We're going to bring Ken Metcalf back to the follow-up hearing, the local boy in Tallahassee. So, yeah, we're all done.
Okay, thank you so much.
If I
At this
might,
time,
Chairman,
yes, sir.
let me interrupt you before we move on. I want to make a note for the record that we did get exhibit number 1 from Mr. Meeks as the application coming in as a composite exhibit, and for the record that we've received composite exhibit number 2, which is a notebook, including 4 tabbed parts, about 1.5 inches thick, but with various and multi-sections going in between as composite exhibit 2. Thank you. Oh, the title of it is Charlotte Holdings LLC submitted for public record.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Pravat. At this time, I'll open the floor to public comment. Do I have anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this matter? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. For this evening, do I have any other comments, questions or comments from the board for any of these gentlemen, or?
No, sir.
I don't, Mr.
I don't. There's a lot of information to divulge. I did spend a lot of time reading it. However, I know that it was a lot, and some of you guys probably didn't have time. Don was out of town, so I can understand needing a little more
And I was out
time
of
to
hell.
just. Yeah. I misspoke. I'm sorry. But anyway, you know where I was going with that. But I can understand it. I mean, it took me a good little while to read all that stuff. It was interesting, but
I think it's
educational.
important too, when you're doing something of this scale, that I like to do a site visit. And I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I haven't been there. And on behalf of the people of Suwannee County,
That's right.
I owe it to them, so.
Yeah.
I do have a question for Mr. Pravat.
Yes, sir.
If we're gonna have a continuance on this hearing, so at this time I will close this public hearing, or?
No, sir, you would continue the public hearing. The public hearing, you've closed public comment at this particular point. You'll do the same process again at the next one, but for right now, all you do will continue this public hearing to the next date.
So I do not close this public hearing?
To a
Correct.
time and date certain.
Right.
It would be April 13 at 6:05 or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation.
Yeah, 5:05,
I didn't,
probably 5:05. That's our
On the
5:05
13th,
meeting.
it'll be 5:05.
Oh.
5:05.
at 5:05.
We've been having do you want to do it after your emergency thing, or do you want to do it at the 5 o'clock?
Either or, it ain't gonna take long either way.
It was, 5:05 is fine, 5:05 PM
The
on
only
April.
reason I say that was because of the advertising issue. See, when we advertised this, it was at 6:05 or as soon thereafter, so if we're going to change the date, my assumption was that we do it the same unless we re-advertise and change the time.
You don't have to do that, as long as it's less than the 6 weeks. You give a notice here today, and it would be fine. The manner in which we're going to do it, because we have an emergency hearing for that particular day, you may want to consider having another advertisement because it's not on a regular day
Right.
And it's at a different time.
and a different time. But you don't have to because of the time, but because it is it's not a normal day.
But that leaves us enough time to advertise again.
Yes.
So we're going to schedule it for April 13th at 5:05 PM or as soon thereafter.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
That'll work.
Moving along to item number 19. I would like to say before, I appreciate everyone coming to speak tonight, and I look forward to getting a resolution with this as soon as we have time to. And I will, if you'd like to be dismissed, please, instead of sitting through things that don't want to sit through.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank y'all.
Thank everybody for coming. Half the room.
Moving on to item number 19. At 6:05 PM or soon thereafter, as the matter can be heard, hold a public hearing to consider adoption of an ordinance pertaining to LDR-21-01 by Stephen M. Douglas, authorized agent for Lafayette State Bank, to change the zoning designation on a parcel of property from agricultural 1 to commercial neighborhood. Mr. Meeks, welcome back, sir.
Yeah, I'm still sworn in, but then
That,
Mr.
at this time, if anyone wishes
I'm
to
sorry.
speak.
Mr. Harris. Just like we did at the last one, if anybody thinks they were going to speak at this one, raise your hand. Mr. Meeks, you're already sworn. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give this evening before the board will be the truth, so help you God? And again, name and address when you are called to the podium. Thank you.
At this time, Mr. Meeks.
Mr. Chairman, board members, the application that you have before you is LDR Amendment 21-01 by Stephen M. Douglas, authorized agent for Lafayette State Bank. This is an application request to change the zoning on a parcel of property that's 2.41 acres in size from agricultural 1 to commercial neighborhood. The property is located at the intersection of State Road 247 and County Road 49 on the west side of the property, and at the intersection of State Road 247 and County Road 248 on the eastern side of the property. The unique shaped parcel of property, as you'll see in the attached application with the supporting site plan and survey that they've submitted. I've kind of told you in the past that, based on what somebody tells you that they want to do on the property, the board necessarily can't hold them to that. If we change the zoning district, then the things that are permitted within neighborhood commercial would be allowed to go on the property. Typically, in the rural areas of the county, when we have neighborhood commercial, it is for convenience type needs, where you see the S&S's, the Jiffy stores that are located in the rural areas of the county is kind of what the neighborhood commercial was set up for. There's also some allowances for different types of service industry stuff, laundry cleaner, dry cleaner, laundry stations and stuff like that, and other service uses that would be permitted for a limited population or geographic area. So when Mr. Douglas approached us about Lafayette State Bank's project that they have planned for the site, would be a drive-through ATM located at that parcel of property. The site plan indicates their access would be off of County Road 49, just north of the intersection of 49 and County Road, or State Road 247. But it would be a drive-through that they would pull up to, use the ATM, and leave. So it's pretty service-based for that area of the county, on the southern end of the county. Mr. Douglas is here to answer any questions the board has in regards to the request. It did go before our Planning and Zoning Board for an advisory decision to the commission at their February meeting, and the advisory from the Planning and Zoning Board was a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners to approve the request. He did state that the Lafayette State Bank was looking to try to create a presence on the south end of the county, and this was one of the first steps in doing so. So at this time, if you don't have any questions of me in regards to the request, I'll enter the file into the record. And Mr. Douglas is here to answer any questions that I may have left out, or if you may have some of him.
Thank you, Mr. Meeks. Do I have any questions for Mr. Meeks before he steps away?
Mr. Meeks, you did say access off of 49, right?
Yeah, they have,
Thought I heard.
on the site plan, it's kind of
Yeah.
situated, you'd have to flip it around to look to see the actual true north-south, but the access, there's an existing driveway off of 49. This property is located just south of where the Beachville Advent Church is located.
Okay.
And there's an existing driveway there.
Any other questions for Mr. Meeks at this time?
No.
Do I have any questions for Mr. Douglas?
Mr. Meeks answered it, but you saying it just only be like a drive-up ATM, no one man in that?
Yeah. Just welcome, sir, and please state your name and address for the record.
Stephen Douglas, do my 184 North Marion Avenue, Lake City, Florida, 32055.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you.
So no one would be manning that, no one would be in there, it would just be just an ATM machine?
Yes, sir.
Like the one at across from Publix, old Publix?
Yes, sir, completely standalone. It's got I believe I've got a drawing here, but it's essentially standalone, has its own power supply, or we run power over to it. But you've got one of these little deals right here. It's got a little bit of lighting underneath it, and then they've also
I
opted,
saw them before, yeah.
they have opted to put a few sight lights out there.
Right, okay.
But yeah, there will not be a human being there. It's a completely automated system.
Mr. Chairman, that's all I want to say.
Any other questions for Mr. Douglas? Thank you, sir. At this time, I will open the floor to public comment. Do I have any, oh, Mr. Pravat.
If I might, I'll just note for the record, Mr. Meeks, the composite exhibit number 1 is accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Pravat. At this time, I'll open the floor to public comment. Do I have anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter? Seeing none, I'll close public comment at this time. Do I have any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner White, a second by Commissioner Fleming. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. At this time, we will close public hearing on this matter. Moving along, we've already addressed item number 20. Go down to general business, item 21. Discuss with possible board action, preliminary and final plat approval of Fern Place subdivision. Mr. Meeks, welcome back, sir.
Sir,
Get him working tonight.
You're earning his paycheck.
this is a minor subdivision approval. By definition, in the land development regulation, minor subdivision is exactly 3 lots that fronts an existing road. Our land use regulations also limit access for any subdivision lot to be to a paved road. So this property and this plat does comply with that portion of the requirements. The site is located in Section 33, Township 3 South, Range 13 East. Size of the subdivision is a 15.08 acre parcel containing a total of 3 lots, each parcel being 5 acres plus in size. There's 2 of them that's listed as 5.02 and 1 listed as 5.04. The access for the lots will be off of County Road 252. You'll notate on the plat that there's a shared driveway between lots 2 and 3, and then lot 1 would have a single access. This would create a little bit of a separation between those. And then you also have an existing road that runs right there on the border of the lot, so we don't have a driveway so close to an intersection. We've got a shared driveway between lots 2 and 3. It's not noted on the plat, but I would like the board to consider it as part of their approval, that if they do consider approval of this, I would like there to be a note added on here, and I mentioned it to Mr. Alcorn about limiting the driveway access to 252. The property itself does front 135th Road to its side, and then 150th Place B to the north. If they did access either one of those roads, then the lot would not comply with the land use regulations and accessing a paved road. So in the notes that's listed on the side, I would just like that added, that the driveway access would be limited to County Road 252 if the board so chooses to approve the request.
This time, do I have any questions for Mr. Meeks? This time, do I have a motion to approve final plat? Noting Mr. Meeks' additional notes.
So moved, noting Mr. Meeks is restricting access to County Road 252, which is the paved road.
Have a motion by Commissioner Land,
Second.
second by Commissioner Hale. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Meeks.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Give you the rest of the evening off. At this time, we will move down to item 23. I don't see any additional agenda items. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'll open the floor to public comment, public concerns and comment. Is anybody from the public wishing to speak on any matters, you're welcome to make your way to the podium. Seeing none, I will close public comment. At this time, we will go to closing comments. Mr. Pravat, do you have anything for us?
Nothing else this evening.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Harris?
No, sir.
Thank you. Before we go to commissioners, I need to get Mr. Norris, please come to the podium, sir. he has a couple of brief comments he'd like to share with us. It's some really good news, and I apologize, I about overlooked you. Got so busy.
It's all good, you know, I'll put the mask back on. Keep it short and sweet, but most of us know, and pretty much all of us have been out there. I think except for Commissioner Land here, we hadn't had a chance to carry him out to the sawmill, but as of 8 o'clock this morning, they started sawing lumber out there, and he said it was a little bit hit and miss, you know, but they were probably at about 50% of what they were, but they'd get the bugs out through the rest of this week. I was personally out there last week. I called Commissioner Stapleton from the site, and he can tell you I was pretty emotional about it, and Mr. Harris, all these guys know we've been working on this project a long time, even when it was Klausner. And they told me log trucks were coming in, but there ain't nothing like sitting out there and seeing them coming in yourself. And they were rolling in every few minutes. And anyway, I just want to say thank you guys, everybody that's supported and been a part of this thing. It's like we've been married to it. I know for me anyway, but they're definitely sawing logs, and we are moving forward. So thank you. Appreciate all of you, everybody because there's been a lot of stuff, a lot of work to.
That place looked like little Detroit out there for a little while. I'm just grateful.
Yeah.
Tell you what.
Thank you, Mr. Norris.
Appreciate you, Mr. Norris.
Thank you.
This time we'll go to closing comments with the commissioners. Commissioner White.
I'm good, thank you.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Land.
No, sir, I'm good.
Commissioner Fleming.
I don't have anything.
Come on, Commissioner Fleming, you got something for me.
It's just good to be here.
Absolutely.
Don't get him started.
Commissioner Hale.
I have nothing.
Wow.
Yep.
Boy, I got to close with something. I would like to say, gentlemen, I appreciate the support on letting me have a little time to study that issue. Even in the short time I've been a commissioner, I've made some decisions, some hasty decisions, and I've went back and looked at it and wish maybe I would have done something different or took more time. And this is one of those times that I appreciate the support for that. Another thing I'd like to say is I know we have a few commissioners going to Tallahassee tomorrow to represent Suwannee County and fight for us and tell them folks over there what they can do to help us, or ask them anyway. But I appreciate y'all for that and wish y'all the best of luck. It's a neat experience when you hadn't been. Commissioner Fleming, you going, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
He'll show
He's
y'all
tour
around.
guide. He's
He
tour
knows
guide.
everybody
He can
over
walk
there.
you around that place.
He signs autographs when he goes to Tallahassee, so he'll show you the ropes.
They said he was buying dinner, too.
No, I ain't saying that.
Mr. Lamb, were you here?
I don't know if you're going to get dinner out of him. He won't even buy his wife a hamburger.
I was gonna say, for their anniversary.
I told her I'd take her to Burger King.
See,
That's what he told her.
tight.
I'll buy my own dinner.
But anyway, I appreciate y'all for going over there and working hard, and it's neat to see how a lot of that goes on.
That's right.
This time, all we need is a motion to adjourn, gentlemen.
So move.
Got a motion by Commissioner Hale,
Second.
second by Commissioner Land. All in favor, say aye. Aye.